Let's do one more card since I've been losing my flow lately with how often I can upload. We got positive vibes. Loving yourself is the greatest revolution. The whole loving yourself thing is something that I guess I could say I have kind of a detached relationship with. I think the earliest memory I have of me thinking of myself, my self esteem, is when I read the definition of self esteem in health class when I was in ninth grade. And I remember this vividly because this was the first time I ever had a male health teacher. I don't remember why that was a thing, but possibly we just didn't have enough staffing. But anyway, I remember him, I remember his name, I remember what he looked like, I remember everything. And he was super nice, super kind, super sweet. And sometimes I wondered if it was awkward for him to be giving classes to females on female stuff. But he had like a very respectful approach to it, very professional, as you can imagine and expect from a teacher. And he was young too. He just seemed so put together at the time. Now, when I read the definition of self esteem, I said to myself, perfect. This is something that I have pretty high. And at the time, the criteria that I used to determine if I felt the way that my interpretation of the definition was is I feel comfortable about myself as a student. I have borderline perfect grades. I am confident about how I live at home. Like, I couldn't say that I was having issues with mom, or at least nothing too severe, maybe the occasional disagreement here and there. It was only within the year and a half after that, that I can say shit started going downhill at home. But in general, I said to myself, okay, at school I'm doing fine. I'm not exactly hated that I'm aware of. I also feel neutral about myself. I don't think I'm hot. I don't think I'm ugly. I don't think I'm super pretty, but I don't think I'm super strained and sore for the eye. I felt like I was in that sweet spot where the things that I valued, which at the time was my education and my performance in my education, because it was going so well, I said to myself, hell yeah, that area of my life that prioritizes above anything is being fulfilled. Therefore, I feel great. My self esteem is high. Like, I'm the shit in school. And at home, I just thought about the challenges that some of my classmates had, that they had been struggling with. In some cases, something as insane as the consumption of things that you shouldn't consume, being affected by other people's influence, acting on negative influences. And I was proud of myself. I don't want it to sound as if I thought of myself as superior to them. I was just grateful that the problems they were having were not problems that I had. I guess in hindsight, I could describe that as my mom did her job in that regard. I didn't have any complex issues. I wasn't easy to impress and manipulate into doing something stupid. I never felt like I hung out with a bad crowd. I was never in peril of anything. I'm telling you, it was like a perfect breeze for me socially, except for a couple of incidents that were not really significant. They didn't escalate into something big, but whatever did happen to me, it was over as quickly as it happened, it seemed, or at least in my eyes. It taking up to a month or two to resolve itself, I think it's reasonable of a time frame. Now, as an adult, when I think of myself and how I love myself, it's something that I have reserved, but I don't know how to describe it exactly. It's something that I process very, very, very quietly. And that is that as an adult, of course, because I can think better, see better, define things better, judge better, I know that I'm performing rather weak in some areas. My body, for example, I have never been fit. I have never been strong. I've never had a flat stomach, for instance. Not even as a kid. I want to say that I've had this body shape Ever since I turned like 4 years old, that's when I can point to pictures and be like, damn, I was fattening up. That's something that I cannot blame myself for, nor can I really blame those who were raising me and taking care of me, because the way that we understand food and caloric intakes and balancing and all that is not really something that I don't think my caretakers were fully aware of and would have perfectly dominated. And maybe at the time the information was not so easily and simple to digest as it is now. So I'm not upset about any of that. I'm just grateful that I got through those times always eating. I cannot say I ever suffered from a food insecurity. And that's something that everyone who took care of me made a priority. And therefore, I guess I can say that food insecurity has never been an issue that I've had. When I think of loving myself, I'm like, as a worker, I'm happy with how I am and where I'm at. As the manager of my home, I think that I'm doing pretty good, pretty well. Other areas of my life where my input is visible, say as a driver, not breaking my car, not getting in wrecks, as a consumer, my bank account is not hitting the negatives like it used to because of the challenges that I have shared in the past that took place, which it wasn't even my own doing. It was me allowing someone else to influence me, led me into my shitty monetary situation. But when I think of it, I think the way that my self love and self perception has evolved is I am better at determining what are my areas with opportunities and being involved in it and at least trying. There had been a time in which I avoided trying things that I knew I was never going to get better with, such as math, for instance. I just looked at it as I want to do well enough to pass. I accept that this is never going to be my forte, but just because it's never going to be my forte, I don't want it to just die there. My effort just dies there. I still kept math present in my mind, and anytime I would see something that I could connect to a lesson I struggled with, I could go like, I guess this is how learning about rounding, for instance, when I was in elementary school, that was the hardest thing for me. I don't know why rounding never made sense. I think it's because I demand precision. Once I understood why rounding can be convenient, I finally made the association and I said, oh, okay, now I understand why precision doesn't have to be the meaning of everything. And from there, I can say that my biggest source of high self esteem is I'm very easy going when it comes to orienting myself. Anything that I know is challenging for me, I accept it, period. I will describe and explain what my struggle is, but I'm never going to try to justify it and take zero accountability for it. I should tell you guys my story of the huge meltdown I had at my manager. I freaked the fuck out yesterday, to the point that I had to be pulled from the sales floor and everything and be thrown in a cave and then let it all out. But fortunately, even though I was like outraged at that moment, I still found it within me to be like, I gotta accept that there are some things that are the way they are, and I can get mad about it all day long, but it is a bigger issue beyond myself. And I cannot just get mad at myself for feeling like I don't fit in to the present because I am different, because I was raised different, because my values are different, because my influences are different, because my upbringing was different, because my resources are different. Different, 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 different. I learned to embrace those things that are different about me as the things that distinguish me. And once I was able to learn that is a part of my package, that's when I began loving myself. I don't know if that made sense to, I guess, phrase that a little differently. All of my experiences, all of the things that I have gathered over the years that I can still reflect, and put out are the ingredients that were needed to make me who I am today. And I don't have any issues with who I am today. I like how I am today. I'm fine with how I am today. I am definitely not someone who's stable, say financially, emotionally, definitely not stable. And when it comes to things like my prospect for the future, I could be doing a whole lot better. I should be a little bit more ambitious, but I'm not. But I'm not mad at myself for that. At some point, I used to be frustrated with myself that my self esteem was low and that I just felt like investing in myself was not worth it. Now I invest in myself in the ways that I find rewarding. Whereas before, I was depriving myself of those things because other things that were not necessarily building up my self love needed to take priority in order for me to do something as basic as living, continue to live, or at least not be living out in the streets. Basically, operating out of fear, the fear of somebody knocking at my door, claiming things from me because I have delinquencies. Given that I'm not delinquent, and for someone not educated, I do believe I have pretty good common sense. And you can explain things to me to where I'll understand it. And if I don't understand it, I'll reason enough to where I can ask you further questions, which will challenge you and your own understanding, by extension, possibly make you a better instructor. And the fact that I'm not out here being disruptive or destructive or anything like that, that is reasons to love myself. I may not be super involved and directly, I guess, weekly have an enormous impact on people in a meaningful way, but at least I can say that I'm not causing issues. I'm not giving anybody headaches. And if I ever do inconvenience somebody, it's nothing that a good ass conversation that I enable to happen because I'm actually able to sit down and listen. And after I lose my shit, I can accept the conclusion and the resolution and work toward it. That makes me love myself because I have observed the people who I keep talking shit about in here, who I'm like, there's the people in denial, there's the disorganized people, they are the man babies, women babies, they are the neglectful people, the irresponsible people, all those things. I can say that I work very hard for those to not be problems that I have. And from there, I can say, you know what? It took a lot of work and dedication for me to get to that point. Why the fuck would I not love that about me? And I can feel the revolution. The revolution to me comes in the form of, even though I don't physically journal anymore, but I do think about it every day. I do think about how it's been a long time. I remember what my journal sounded like anytime I would add a new entry to it. I was angry, I was upset, I was offended, I was depressed, I was miserable. But now, if I were to journal, it's going to be an entry that talks more about, even though my experiences haven't been that many, like my job is still the same, my residence is still the same, my car is still the same, my pet is still the same, and all that, I can notice the differences in seasons. And even my connections, my friend connections, at least as of the past 3 years, they have pretty much all changed, but I have maintained a core presence of important people, and I can even see how they have improved or lost points in some areas, but at the same time, I see it as maybe this is their season to go through what I went through, which is I had my seasons where I was losing points on my performance in life shit, but how did I rebound? What did I gain? What did I lose? What did I have to let go of? And it's quite an amazing journey, and I'm so glad that I can see it that way now, as opposed to my entries being nothing but resentful, text, and for some reason I wanted to document it and have it permanently living in pages. But in the end, I could just see myself and be like, I'm just speaking from a place of hurt. And that's why I always appeared like I was miserable all the time and like I never had anything nice or positive to say, is because that was my life. That was really the reality. That is how I thought. And I am not embarrassed about it. What I'm happy about is that I was able to move on from that, surpass that, as opposed to remaining stuck in those days. And it's something that takes a lot of work. And I didn't realize that I was doing the work. And the reason I don't realize that is because my very nature helps me. My nature of being curious, my nature of humiliating myself and asking for advice, even asking people who I normally wouldn't consult because I dead ass don't trust them. At some point, I have to accept that those clowns need to be my allies, however temporary, and after I get what I ultimately can only get from them at this moment in time, I let them go and it's over. And I don't have issues with determining that. When is the end of an era? Accepting it and letting go. In the past, I was having trouble accepting that something was over and a new thing was starting, and how I needed to get on board with those changes. I think I was investing more time into trying to prove that something was wrong or something wasn't going to work or something like that, as opposed to being like, okay, what is this new chapter? Let's read it. I was trying to rewrite the chapter before reading it, if that makes sense. Well, there you guys have it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on this one, as always, and I'll see you soon.